We're all looking for simple, effective ways to handle stress and anxiety. We've tried pretty much everything, right? From meditation apps to medication. But what if a real solution was quite literally at your fingertips? I mean, it sounds like a pretty bold claim, doesn't it? The idea that just a sequence of gentle taps on your face and body could have a huge effect on your mental and even your physical well-being. But that's exactly what millions of people are trying out. It's known as EFT, or sometimes just tapping. And, well, this is where it gets interesting. While its supporters are hailing it as a total game changer, a lot of folks in the scientific community are, let's just say, deeply skeptical. So today, we're going to tap into the evidence. Okay, so what exactly is this tapping thing? Before we can get into the whole debate, we first have to understand what the method itself is all about. At its core, EFT is kind of like a mashup. It takes this idea of energy pathways, or meridians, from traditional Chinese medicine, and it blends it with Western psychology, like focusing on a specific problem or a tough memory. You basically talk through the issue while tapping on these specific spots on your body. And believe it or not, this isn't just some fringe practice anymore. You've got organizations like EFT International that have been set up to create codes of conduct, to push for more research, and to train practitioners. It's giving the whole technique a formal structure and a real global presence. All right, so let's start by looking at the argument for EFT. The people who believe in it say this is way more than just a distraction. They think it has a direct, measurable effect on our brains and our bodies. A typical session is actually very structured. First, you pinpoint what's bothering you. Let's say it's a fear of public speaking, and you rate how intense it feels on a scale from 0 to 10. Then, you come up with a setup statement, something that acknowledges the problem but also includes a bit of self-acceptance. As you say this out loud, you tap through a sequence of 9 key points. And when you're done, you re-rate your distress level. The goal is to keep going until that number gets really low. Now, this idea didn't just pop up out of nowhere. It actually traces its roots all the way back to ancient Chinese medicine and that concept of meridians. Then, in the 70s, a psychologist named Dr. Roger Callahan streamlined it into a system called thought field therapy. And then in the 90s, a Stanford engineer named Gary Craig simplified it even more, creating the one-size-fits-all sequence that we now know as EFT, which made it super accessible for everybody. This quote right here, it really gets to the heart of the whole practice. Proponents see our bodies as more than just a bunch of cells and chemicals. They see us as an energy system. The belief is that our emotional problems are caused by a disruption in this energy, and that tapping helps get things back in balance. Okay, but what does the data say? Well, one clinical trial looked at people with chronic pain who did a 6-week EFT program, and the results were pretty significant. They reported almost a 40% reduction in anxiety, over 20% less pain, and a real drop in depression. These aren't just vague feelings, these are measurable changes. And they didn't just stop at what people reported. The same study used fMRI brain scans to see what was actually going on inside their heads. And what they found was that after the EFT treatment, there was less connectivity in the parts of the brain that handle how we process pain and our tendency to catastrophize. You know, that mental spiral that makes pain feel so much worse. This suggests a real physical change was happening in the brain. But, and there's always a but, right? As promising as all that sounds, there's another side to this story. A lot of researchers are looking at this and asking a big question. Is this all just a powerful placebo effect? They're questioning the very foundation of EFT. This really is the million-dollar question for the critics. Is tapping on these specific meridian points the magic ingredient here? Or are the benefits just coming from other well-understood psychological principles that are kind of piggybacking on the whole process? So a fascinating study back in 2003 tried to figure this out. They took people with phobias and split them into different groups. The results were pretty shocking, actually. The regular EFT group, their fear dropped a lot, just like you'd expect. But so did the group that tapped on completely random points on their arm. And get this, so did the group that just tapped on a doll instead of themselves. The only group that saw no change was the one that didn't do any tapping at all. A study like that suggests that maybe, just maybe, the location of the tapping doesn't matter one bit. So skeptics argue that the benefits are coming from things that lots of other therapies use. The tapping itself could just be a distraction. Focusing on your fear, that's a form of exposure therapy. And of course, the deep breathing and just believing it's going to work, well, that's a powerful mix of relaxation and the placebo effect. This quote from clinical psychologist Gary Backer really cuts to the chase. The core idea of EFT, that it works by fixing energy meridians,
Well, there's just no basis for that in our current understanding of anatomy and physiology. It's a concept that modern science just doesn't support. So, where does that leave us? As you can probably tell, this is not a settled issue, not by a long shot. It's an active and, yeah, sometimes pretty heated debate that's happening right now. And here it is, the whole argument on one slide. On one side, you've got the proponents who believe EFT is totally unique, that it works by fixing the body's energy system. On the other side, you've got the skeptics who argue that EFT is just a clever package of old therapeutic tricks like distraction and placebo wrapped up in some new pseudoscientific language. They'd say the benefits might be real, but the explanation for why is just wrong. And this isn't just an academic debate. It has real-world consequences. You have respected places like Bond University actively researching EFT, even training students in it. But at the same time, you have huge government bodies, like Australia's NDIS, that have outright banned funding for it, lumping it in with other therapies they call energy healing. So in the end, we're left with this really compelling question. Is EFT a genuine breakthrough therapy, a new tool that could help people who haven't found relief anywhere else? Or is it a kind of therapeutic theater, a powerful ritual that works because of placebo and other known psychological effects, but not at all for the reasons its proponents claim? The research is still ongoing, and it really highlights how tricky it is to measure therapies that live at that intersection of mind and body. For now, the verdict? Well, it's really up to you.